For a long moment after Isabella walked away, the table remained silent. The laughter that once filled the air had completely vanished. The soft piano music from the corner of the restaurant seemed louder now, echoing between the glasses and silverware. Alexander Moretti sat stiffly in his chair, his mind replaying the scene like a broken record. The sound of Isabella's voice, calm, confident, perfectly fluent in Italian, kept ringing in his ears. He felt a strange mix of embarrassment and disbelief. How could a waitress, of all people, have spoken like that? And so gracefully, too. His friends shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to say. One of them finally cleared his throat and tried to lighten the mood. "Well, she certainly proved you wrong, Alex," he said with a half-smile. Alexander forced a laugh, but it came out awkward, almost painful. "Yeah, maybe she took some classes or something," he muttered, pretending not to care. But deep down, something inside him stung, not because she spoke Italian, but because of the way she'd done it. Calm, intelligent, without anger. That kind of composure couldn't be faked. He glanced toward the kitchen where she had disappeared. For some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about her face. Those calm eyes, that quiet confidence. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Isabella leaned against the counter, trying to steady her heartbeat. She wasn't angry anymore. She had felt a spark of anger, yes, but it passed quickly. Now she just felt proud. Not because she had embarrassed him, but because she had stood up for herself with dignity. Matteo, her co-worker, approached her with a grin. "So," he said softly, "I heard you gave the millionaire a little surprise." Isabella laughed quietly. "You heard that?" "Everyone did," Matteo said, shaking his head. The kitchen went silent when he stopped talking. You should have seen his face. She smiled, but said nothing more. She didn't want to make fun of him. She only wanted to do her job in peace. Still, a small part of her hoped he had learned something, even if he never admitted it out loud. After a few minutes, she gathered herself and walked back into the dining area. Her steps were calm, light, almost graceful, as if the earlier moment hadn't affected her at all. She carried herself with quiet pride, not the kind that looks down on others, but the kind that comes from knowing who you are. When she approached Alexander's table again to check on them, his friends immediately looked down, pretending to be busy with their food. The tension was thick. Only Alexander dared to look up, his expression serious now, his arrogance softened. "Is everything all right with your meal, gentlemen?" Isabella asked politely. Alexander hesitated. His voice, once full of pride, came out quieter this time. Yes, everything is fine, thank you." Isabella nodded. "I'm glad to hear that, sir. If you need anything else, please let me know." Her tone was respectful, but her eyes carried a message he couldn't ignore, a reminder that kindness could exist even after disrespect. She didn't mock him, she didn't gloat. She simply did her job, and somehow that made him feel even smaller. After she walked away, one of his friends leaned closer and whispered, "You know, Alex, I think she taught you something tonight." Alexander looked down at his plate, avoiding his friend's gaze. "Yeah," he muttered. "I think she did." He tried to focus on his food, but he couldn't taste anything. His mind was miles away, thinking about the way he had treated her, the way she had responded, and the way she carried herself. He had met CEOs, politicians, and millionaires like himself, but none of them had ever made him feel humbled like this waitress had, with just a few simple words. Later, when Isabella returned with the dessert menu, Alexander spoke before she could say anything. "Miss," he began awkwardly. "What's your name?" She looked surprised but answered politely. "Isabella, sir." He nodded slowly. "Isabella," he repeated, as if testing the sound of it. "That's a beautiful name." She smiled gently. "Thank you, sir." There was a small pause. He wanted to say more, to apologize maybe, but his pride still held him back. So instead, he nodded again and let her walk away. As the evening went on, Alexander barely joined in his friend's conversation. His mind kept wandering back to Isabella. Her calm voice, Her graceful words, they echoed in his head like a quiet song that wouldn't fade. By the time the bill arrived, he made a decision. He took out his pen and wrote a short note on the back of the receipt. Then he placed a generous tip beside it, more than she probably made in a week, and stood up to leave. As he walked out of the restaurant, his friends following behind, he took one last look over his shoulder. Isabella was by another table, smiling at an elderly couple, her expression kind and patient as always. For the first time that night, Alexander Moretti smiled too, not out of pride but out of respect. In the quiet corner of the restaurant, Isabella later found the note he had left behind. It read, "Intelligence isn't shown by money or power. It's shown by grace. Thank you for reminding me." She folded the note gently and slipped it into her apron pocket, smiling to herself. That night, Florence glowed under the silver moonlight, and somewhere between arrogance and humility, a man had changed. Not because he was scolded, but because he was taught by kindness.